And I apologize, I've never used this before, so if it's too loud, please let me know. We are going to start with Laura, and we're going to have her introduce herself, and you will have 2 minutes to go through an introductory and just talk about yourself and why you're running for office.
Can everybody hear me? All right, terrific. My name is Laura Olszewski. I did have it up here like this, in case you get that. So, let's see. I live in Bermuda Landing. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I lived 41 years in Maryland, lived 14 years in New Mexico. I bought on Topsail 22 years ago, and I've been a full-time resident for the last 7 years. My background, I have a degree from Towson State University in Maryland in geography and environmental planning. Did my student internship for the city of Philadelphia in community planning and worked in their zoning department to do that. In the meantime, I kind of got waylaid in technology because I'm of that age where we got caught up in that, and I spent 35 years in tech as an IT director. I worked in 3 verticals. I worked in education in public sector, I worked in healthcare, and I worked in television. So I have 35 years in tech, and then I ran away to the beach. And I became a realtor. I am not working full-time in real estate right now. People have asked about that. I am mentoring, I'm serving on committees, and I'm working with younger people in the business. I turn 64 next week, and I'm sliding into retirement, and I have plenty of time to work for the town and to serve on boards and to bring my background and hopefully the skill set I have. I have a master's level certification in mediation, so I hope to add to the conversation and to listen to what the citizens of North Topsail Beach are saying.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler, would you like to go next?
Yes, I would. Thank you. So I'm Phil Fowler. I live at 3745 Island Drive. I'm a retired federal employee. I worked both in uniform and as a civilian for the federal government for a total of 47 years. I've been retired down to Topsail Island now, going on 6-7 years. Spouse came down with me. Regrettably was unable to continue the journey. So as has been pointed out earlier, I've got plenty of time on my hands to take care of the business of the town. It is in that vein that I bring the team building assets that I learned as I run through the federal government and dealing with international agencies and small groups in the United States. I bring something completely different to the table. I don't believe in status quo. I question most everything first to see if there's a better way. If there's a better way, let's go that way and not stay where we are. I believe the town can be much better than it is, and I look forward to helping it get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank all of those involved with setting up this forum. I grew up as a U.S. Air Force brat, lived all over the country and the world. I entered the Marine Corps after college, retired from the Marine Corps as an officer after 30 years of service, over half of which was performed here locally at Camp Lejeune. I've lived here full-time at 218 Coastal Drive for over 21 years, minus deployments, since February 1st, 2002. I've served 2 terms on the Board of Aldermen, first from 2011 to 2015, the second from 2017 to 2021. I also served as the Mayor Pro Tem for 2 years during that time, from 2013 to 2015. At the end of next month, I'll have completed my 9th year on the board. I believe that I bring a level of experience and expertise to the board that is unmatched by my write-in opponent. Prior to running for office, I served as a member and later as the vice chair of our town's beach erosion study team, which was also known as the BEST Committee, during 2008 and 2009, from its creation to its conclusion. I believe that our town's committees and boards are a great place for an individual to begin service to our town, as they provide an excellent understanding and foundation of how our local government works, and specifically what can and cannot be done. I served as a member of the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Committee for 6 years. I'm a current member of the Board of Directors of the North Carolina Beach Inlet and Waterway Association, also known as NC Byway, and have been since 2018. I'm also a member of the Camp Lejeune Military Retiree Council. I'm running for the 2-year seat. The reason I'm doing that, the primary task that I want to complete is the removal of our town from COBRA. And I think I can get that done in 2 years. Like everyone else here, I filed for the 4-year term. When the State Board of Elections discovered an irregularity, they determined that one of the seats previously occupied by an alderman who resigned needed to be a 2-year seat to complete that term and be run on a separate ballot. When the filing position opened for that seat on the last day of filing, no one had stepped forward to run, so I withdrew from the 4-year term and ran the race for that and filed for the race for that position. And since my time's up, I'll stop.
Mr. Fontana?
Good evening. Appreciate everybody coming out here today. My name is Fred Fontana. I'm a graduate of Cornell University with a bachelor's and a master's degree in civil engineering with an emphasis in transportation. I've spent more than 40 years in transportation management. The first 30 years was with state and local government at various levels, state, county, city. And during those 30 years, I was also elected president of the North Carolina Public Transportation Association for 3 years, and was a recipient of the Governor's Award that's given out by the North Carolina Department of Transportation for career excellence. I spent the next 7 years working with the largest American-owned transit management company in the United States, and then I retired, and I was ready to move to the coast. I always wanted to move to the coast, and a couple of months into my retirement, I got a call from the director of the Public Transportation Division with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and she said, "Fred, I know you're retired, but they're having some problems in Goldsboro, and you're really the first name that came to mind when we thought about getting those problems fixed." So it was supposed to be a short term. It ended up being 4 years, but at the end, I was given the key to Wayne County by the Wayne County Commissioners. But during that time, my wife and I looked up and down the coast for a retirement place, and we settled on North Topsail Beach. Since then, I've been a volunteer. I've been on the Onslow County United Transit Systems Board of Directors as president, and do a lot of volunteer work in Wilmington and on Turtle Patrol and on the Shoreline Protection Commission and Planning Board.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Connie Paletto, and I've lived here in North Topsail Beach full-time for 27 years with my husband, Mike. Together, we've raised our children here, and now they and our grandchildren frequently come to visit. I've been a member of several area volunteer boards, committees, and organizations throughout the years. Most notably, I've been with the Topsail Turtle Project for around 20 years, and I am one of the beach coordinators. I attended college at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, UNCW, with a major in English and a minor in environmental science. After college, I was the managing editor of a local weekly newspaper for over a decade. I wrote and edited articles, most of which focused on area towns and county politics. I noted during that time that while partisan squabbling and decisions made by elected officials in Washington made the headlines, it's the decisions here at the local level that greatly and sometimes immediately impact people's lives. After covering countless board meetings, you would have thought that I would want nothing to do with politics, but quite the contrary. My decision to be on the Board of Aldermen stemmed from a desire to help this town move forward in a positive manner that would benefit the residents, property owners, and visitors. Over the years, I've experienced the inevitable change and growth that has taken place and is still taking place here in North Topsail Beach. I have seen what has worked and what has not worked, the challenges of storms and erosions, the opportunities for improvements to both the natural environment of the town as well as smart growth, safety, and amenities for all. I was appointed to the board after the passing of Alderman Richard Peters in 2001, and later that year was elected to that seat. During the time I've been on the board, we have made a positive impact and pushed this town forward in ways that have not even been considered in the past. If elected, I endeavor to continue to make a positive impact as alderman here in North Topsail Beach.
Thank you. All right, we are going to start, actually, Connie, at this end with our very first question. Again, you'll have 1 minute to answer. What do you see as the top 2 issues in North Topsail Beach, and what kind of suggestions or solutions do you have to offer?
I think that the top 2 issues are beach nourishment and public safety. I think that we have to continue the plans that have been put in place, working with our beach engineer to realize that sometimes things are going to happen. We can't always just say this is how we're going to do it and stick to it. While we need to, we also have to realize that there's storms that could come and impact us. We have to be very flexible in what we're doing. We have to do it with an eye also to finances. Everybody would love to be able to nourish the beaches with tons of money, but we don't have tons of money. We don't want to burden the taxpayers. The same with with public safety. We want to make sure that our fire and police are adequately funded so that everybody stays safe, but we also have to keep within our budget.
Thank you. Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, I agree with Connie on everything she said. I'd also like to add that when we talk about beach nourishment and preserving the beach, and it's more than just the beach. It's the dunes, it's the wetlands on the sound side. We've recently made stricter enforcement to keep development off of the dunes and off of the wetlands. We're trying to protect the entire area around the island. Also, we need to protect our infrastructure. The new fire station is going to help. I've proposed bike lanes on New River Inlet Road. I think the safety of our tourists that come and of our residents is very important. And so I think between the infrastructure and the beach, the entire beach, the whole, all the way around the island, those are the 2 main issues.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
I really think it's hard to narrow it down just to 2. I agree with what both Connie and Fred had said. I tend to like to call beach nourishment shoreline protection instead of beach nourishment because I think that more adequately describes what we're trying to do with the dunes and the beach itself, the beach face, and all the way back to the wetlands. I also think that one of the issues that hasn't been mentioned yet is our town's removal from the Coastal Barrier Resources Act zones. Anybody that lives in Phase 1, south of Gunny Boatman Drive, and all the way down to Phase 5 is in a COBRA zone. They can't get federal flood insurance. We can't use VA, veterans can't use a VA eligibility to get a home loan, and we're working hard to try to remove our town from those COBRA areas.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
So I think the two mentioned earlier, water and safety, have been talked about quite a bit. And I think they pose probably the long-range challenge for the town. I think the statement was right about the beach renourishment. That shouldn't be a knee-jerk reaction or a let's run to and fix. It should be a matter of routine, and the remainder of it should be looked at fiscally, as has been talked about earlier. That's all I have on those.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Olszewski?
So I think 2 of the main issues facing us, I agree with everyone on the panel so far with shoreline protection. Working with the state, the federal government, the county to make sure that we are in good relationship with them to get grants and money and aid as we need it, but also to be good citizens with those funds to work those projects. I particularly see a need for road safety and not only bike lanes, but the issue of crosswalks, where we have some development that is intense, that we have people crossing and they're at risk right now. And since some of our roads are managed by the state, we need to work that relationship to work on some road safety issues.
Thank you. And the next set of questions, we'll start with you going back. In 1996, Hurricane Fran cut North Topsail End into several pieces. It took a long time to restore this end of the island. Do you feel that North Topsail Beach is prepared if we were to ever have another major hurricane? And if not, what do you think should be done to help improve that?
So that if I interpret your question in two different ways, is the town of North Topsail Beach prepared for the next major hurricane? I think we had a big test of that with Hurricane Florence. If it's bigger than that, I hope we're all evacuated. But I think the town did a very good job with responding to Hurricane Florence. I think, as with any plan, you have to test the plan. So in public sector, one of the things you do is go through your emergency management plan regularly to make sure you're prepared for the next one, because we know there'll be a next storm. So is the town ready? I think we have to always continuously work on that. Is the island itself ready? And is our shoreline ready? I think we're continuing to work shoreline protection, but I don't know that you beat Mother Nature.
Mr. Fowler?
To continue on with that thought process, North, the correct thing is the town as an issue and the dunes. It runs the entire length of it. So the question is, are our dunes secure? The answer is no, they're not. We need to work. There are three that come to mind specifically. They happen to be on the south end. Again, it's not a south-north issue. We need to ensure the dunes are reinforced so that it protects the homeowners and the infrastructure that we have in this area. Thank you.
Mr. Leonard?
First of all, that's a really good question. To Mr. Fowler's point, we have beach restoration plans in the mill for the next upcoming renourishment cycle, both in Phase 4 and I believe Phase 2. Florence was an eye-opener. I was on the board then. I was in the second vehicle across that bridge afterwards, and to see water up as high as the top of the fire hydrant, and the next day coming back again, and it wasn't really water, but it was all of our dune line was over there. It was a real eye-opener. We made some mistakes during Florence. We corrected those mistakes as a staff and as a board, and we're able to really move forward, and our communication was much better, I thought, with our constituents during Dorian. Right now, we have the cash reserves in place that if we have another major storm like that, that we'll have the money to put down up front to restore these beaches pending FEMA reimbursement. That was a problem last time. We actually had to go in and get a bridge loan to do that. But we're in much better shape fiscally right now than we have been before, and it's going to help us when it's time to restore.
Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, not to repeat what's already been said, because I agree with everything so far. The town has a very excellent relationship with the county, with their emergency management team. We have mutual aid agreements with all the towns on the island and the county. We have an excellent relationship with NCDOT, with ONWASA, with all the other utilities. So we are prepared. We could activate the Emergency Operations Center, and the county manager works very closely with the fire and police, and I think we are definitely prepared for any event that may come this way.
I was here during Bertha and Fran, and yes, when the island was actually cut off into several little islands. Since that time, I've seen the town continuously work to get updated on every new thing that comes along. Some of them work, some of them don't. However, like everyone else says, we have been working with the county. We've been working with the National Weather Service. We have the programs here where our builders know what building codes to go up to. I feel like if another storm comes, another Bertha and Fran, I feel like we're way more adequately able to address that than we were in the past. I think our building codes have a lot to do with it, and also as we continue to work on the dune structure, that also provides protection.
All right, thank you. The next question is going to start with you and work back. Are you currently involved in the community, such as volunteering or on a board of directors, and if so, on what committees?
I am on the Topsail Turtle Project. I've been on there for almost 20 years. I started out believing that I live on this island, I had the privilege to be here, I want to give back in some way. And so that was one of the first committees that I started on. I was a beach walker for 5 days a week, and then eventually became one of the beach coordinators, continuing to help our endangered species. It's a year-round volunteer position, but we're most active during the summer and fall. I've also helped at Dixon Schools. I've been on the Topsail Chamber. I've been on the Shoreline Protection Committee. There's been several others, but it's been my pleasure to serve and be part of the community, whether it's been with the town or just with other volunteer organizations.
Okay. Mr. Fontana?
Yes. Currently, I represent the town at the Jacksonville Urban Area Transportation Advisory Committee. I'm on the Shoreline Protection Commission. I am also attending all the Chamber of Commerce meetings. I too am on the Topsail Turtle Patrol. I've been president for 4 years of the Onslow United Transit System. And I also do volunteer work for the Food Bank of Eastern and Central North Carolina in Wilmington, and that Share the Table in Holly Ridge. And I think it's just, I've been very blessed in my life, and I think it's important that we give back to the community.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Yes, I also served as a member of the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission for a total of 6 years, 2011 to 15, and then 19 to 21. I'm currently a member, and have been for 5 years, on the board of directors for the North Carolina Beach Inlet and Waterway Association. As I also said in my opening statement, I'm also a member of the Camp Lejeune Retiree Council.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
I am not on any of the town's committees, have not been. Currently on the, with the Chamber of Commerce and the Kiwanis, and I do volunteer work for dementia patients in the local area. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Olszewski?
There you go. I'm vice president of the Bermuda Landing Homeowners Association, and I've served on the board in Bermuda Landing for the last 7 years. Deb, our planning person here at the town, has recently asked me to serve on the planning board, so I will begin that service. And I'm on the Topsail, I belong to the Chamber of Commerce here as well. So, my tagline's always living and working on Topsail Island.
Excellent. All right, the next question is going to start with you, and this is kind of unique because it does call out Mr. Leonard directly in a positive way. It says, in my opinion, the removal of the CBRA, COBRA designation, is the most pressing issue for North Topsail Beach at this time. Mr. Leonard has made tremendous efforts toward achieving this objective. How would you work toward achieving this goal?
So I think that's a very daunting thing to work on, and I do applaud the current board for their efforts in that regard. And I think Mr. Leonard has tremendous background with that issue. I think we need to continue to work with state and federal. Oh, sorry. Couldn't hear me. Okay, let's start over. I want to thank the board for their work currently done on that issue and thank Mr. Leonard for his efforts in that. Certainly as property owners on the island and as a community that wants to grow, we need to make it more accessible for funds for our veterans to buy homes and also to help with these challenges we have with the insurance industry. How would I work towards that? I would get involved with that effort and also reach out directly to state and federal officials as to how we could work on that more directly.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
Well, first and foremost, don't give up on what's been done to date with the stuff. That'd be criminal with the amount of effort that's been put into it to get it to this point. That being said, it's a fickle place when you get into Washington and get to committees. It just is not what it seems sometimes. We have to stay focused and stay, how I would approach it, as much as Laura said, you've got to stay with them, keep them interested in the program so that they keep the constituents there interested in the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
We've gotten where we've gotten with COBRA by building relationships in Washington, D.C. And I have built those relationships with individuals on Congressman Murphy's staff, specifically a gentleman named Ray Celeste. We've maintained a dialogue. This is a federal issue. State can only help us so much by going to federal, which we can do ourselves, and asking for help. I was able to go up last month and testify in front of a congressional subcommittee, Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries, asking for removal of 10% of the overall COBRA map. And I know that there's been issues and discussions on social media about why it's only 10%, because the other 90% is conservation district and unbuildable land. It's the 10% that we want out, and at the same time, by only asking for that 10%, we're showing the federal government that we respect COBRA and the intents of COBRA. But this has all been about building relationships in Washington, D.C.
Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, to follow up with what Tom just said, it's a multifaceted, effort. We're also on the Shoreline Protection Commission has strongly supported, and that's all three towns on the island. The Shoreline Protection Commission uses former Congressman Mike McIntyre. He's got his pulse on what's going on in Washington, and he has been a strong advocate along with Congressman Murphy and Congressman Rozier. So we're trying it from as many directions as we can get. But like Tom said, it's, they say it's a not a sprint, it's a marathon, and hopefully we'll get this passed.
I'm going to echo what everybody else has said. Everybody has made some really great points. We need to keep on our elected officials up in Washington about this. This was an error that was made many, many years ago, and the town has been fighting to get it taken out, the COBRA taking away from this 10% area that was already developed. Mr. Leonard has been doing an excellent job. We have gotten farther than we've ever been before. With some perseverance and with a lot of dedication, I think that we'll eventually get it taken care of.
Okay, thank you. And the next question starts with you. How can the rights of full-time residents of North Topsail Beach be protected and balanced with owners of rental property and developers? Examples of intrusion include the noise, parking, beach crowding, traffic, stormwater onto properties and roads from large mega houses.
Yes. So, as someone who has been a resident of this island for almost 3 decades, I fully understand that. I also understand the property rights of the people who do build these big mega houses. This is their income as well. I think as a board member, when we are making policy decisions, ordinances, laws, everything that affects the residents directly, we have to remember these rules, regulations, ordinances, this is something we have to live with every day. Whereas people that are renting their houses, they don't. So there has to be a balance. We have to look at all sides of the issue. We're in such a unique position. We can't just look at residents, but maybe the residents have to have a little more consideration than the rental places.
Thank you. Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, we're sort of in a catch-22. As a resident, I like being quiet and peaceful and not have any noise around us. But the fact is, we're a tourist destination, one of the top tourist destinations in the state, if not the entire country. And with tourism, you're going to get people that are on vacation, they want to have a good time, and quite frankly, they may make more noise than we like. But they also bring quite a bit of money to the island, to this town, and I think all in all, it's a trade-off. We just have to be willing to accept some of the noise, and maybe we do need to look at our noise ordinances and see if we can't tighten up some of the times when it is too noisy. But overall, we have to remember that this town is built on tourism, and we just have to enjoy it like everybody else does.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
It's a good question, and I don't think there's any real easy answers to it. My favorite word while I sit up here as an alderman has always been balance, and we really need to balance the needs and the wants of our people who come in, save up money all year to come here for a week's vacation, and sometimes feel like they can do whatever they want against those of us who live here full time and who have chosen to make this beautiful island our home. And I think it's something that we're not going to answer in a minute or less here, but we have to look at all sides. And we have a super manager right now, and we have a great town staff. And I know that when I have a problem with them, even when I wasn't on the board, and there's somebody making noise at 11 o'clock at night, I called into Onslow County non-emergency dispatch, usually gets a police officer out somewhere, just checking to make sure everything's okay. We have ways to fix those things short term. I know that's not a long-term fix, but we have to kind of look at everybody has a dog in this fight, and certainly the people who are renting houses and making an income, they're one side, but then there's those of us who live here full time, and I think we have to consider it all and balance all of those different priorities against one another.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
Not much difference. Due diligence as you build or buy. We all know. And going back to the ordinances, I think that's key, that we sit down and review and make sure the ordinances protect and say what we want it to say. I think it's right. There is no, today it'll be left 5 degrees and tomorrow it'll be right 5 degrees. At the end of the year, it'll all balance out for the most. It may take 10 years for some to balance out, but there's no draw a hard line and get on one side of it and stay to solve this.
Ms. Olszewski?
So your question was how to protect the rights of full-time residents, and I think our law enforcement has really worked to do that. I think we do need to look at some of the ordinances. We need to look at our leash law. We need to look at whether we're going to enforce that. We need to look at our fine for crossing the dunes. We need to look at how we best get the message out and get people on site when there are problems on the beach, because those do occur. So I think we do have to look at how we protect our full-time residences and not have people trash our beach and dig holes that people can trip and fall and break their leg in. So those things are important for us to look at. We love our beach town. We love our tourists. They bring a lot of revenue here, and we like our rental properties because those people bring money to our tax base. But we do have to look at responsible planning and zoning.
Thank you. And again, the next question is going to start with you. In 2006, the town of North Topsail Beach had a bond referendum on beach nourishment. It failed 80-20. Now, 19 years later, many of us are paying beach, and this is not me saying this, many of us are paying beach nourishment taxes even higher than the amount that was soundly rejected by the voters. If elected, will you commit that any future borrowing for beach nourishment projects will be allowed if the citizens approve the borrowing via a bond referendum.
I have to say I'd have to look at that more closely when we got to that to see the numbers. Because I don't feel informed enough to know whether we should do a bond or some other type of monetary, grant or fundraising for that. So I'm not informed on that issue.
All right. Mr. Fowler?
We developed the phases. And to go back and address the borrowing for any specific phase, that may be something that we have to look at. Has not necessarily been put into play, but we may have to go back and look at that versus townwide. But I think you have to look at the homeowners and the residents in the area that we're talking about. I think they carry a great weight if they all sign to take on that burden, that monetary burden. It should be favorably considered.
All right, Mr. Leonard?
Several years ago, the board enacted a 10 cents per 100 beach tax as part of our town's property tax. That beach tax is going into a beach fund. One of the reasons that was done was so that we wouldn't have to get into a position like this question addresses. The town has done a great job lately with fiscal issues. One of our aldermen who's here and in the audience and not up for re-election this time is Rick Grant, and he has really helped the town immensely with respect to figuring out how to put money in the bank. And we've got money in the bank now. We've got money in the beach fund. We've got a lot of money in the beach fund. We restructured the Phase 5 USDA rural development loan. We're going to have that paid off relatively soon. And we are in a position now that we've never been in before in this town where we've got a good chunk of money in the bank. So we shouldn't have to go down this path. And I don't like the idea of the path simply because it splits people up. You've got people who are beachfront, non-beachfront. Why should I pay for it? I'm not on the beach. It's a North End beach project. I live in the South. Why do I have to pay for it? Or vice versa. We're all one town here, and we have the word beach in our name, and it's very important that we all look at it as one town, because that beach supports all of us, and that beach is why people come here, and they come here, as was previously addressed, and they spend a heck of a lot of money here. But we're in a good position financially now.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Fontana?
Yes, the town has worked the last couple of years, and we still maybe have another 3 or 4 years to go to get out of debt. The bonds that the town is obligated to pay. And I don't think the town, I know the current board has made a fiscal decision not to borrow money if at all possible. We are going with a pay-as-you-go policy. We pretty much have set aside money, as Tom has said, and we're going to need to continue to set aside money. The beach every year is going to need money. I think I've seen numbers, and I think Rick brought this up, but we're going to need to spend at least $4 million a year to keep the beach nourished. But if we just put the money aside each year in the budget, we won't have to go into debt. And the way interest rates are going now, I think we're much better off paying it as you go.
As previously stated, the town has put policies into place so that there should be no need for any bond referendums. Taxes are taken out that go specifically into the beach fund. However, if it's for a beach nourishment project or anything else, if there is a bond referendum, I do believe it should be on the ballot, and I do believe that we should take into consideration the voters, the taxpayers. Their word is what we should stick with.
All right, thank you. All right, next question is going to start with you. Paid parking is a great success. Revenues are up, and the parking situation that existed prior to paid parking, such as day trippers parking everywhere, has largely been fixed. If elected, would you consider a significant increase in the parking rates, both to increase revenue and to continue to reduce congestion, trash, and other problems?
I am actually on the parking committee, and I don't know that I would look to increase I don't think I'd look at increasing the fee at this time. That may be something in the future. But what we are looking at right now is seeing if there's any way that we can increase, is there any places that we can increase the amount of parking available? Can we put in some extra spots? There may be some increases, perhaps down at the drive-on beach. But at this time, I don't see any increases in the fee.
Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, I don't see any need to increase the fee either. I think one of the benefits that the fee has, and aside from the additional revenue that the town has gotten, it has made New River Inlet and Island Drive a lot safer. I believe it was the first year of the pandemic in 2020. There was cars parked all over the place, blocking people's driveways, parking on the yards. You couldn't drive up and down the street. So the policy, in addition to getting the revenue, has really helped improve safety on the roads for the pedestrians, for the bicyclists, for the people trying to get out of their driveways. But at this time, I don't see a need to increase the parking fee.
Mr. Leonard?
I'm also on the parking committee with Connie. I was on the parking committee when we developed the parking committee along with Rick Grant and then manager Dave Gilbride, and I sat down with the gentleman from Surfcast and put together the paid parking program. I think it's worked well. I think that we have to balance what our parking rates are against our neighboring two cities or two towns, actually only one. I don't think Topsail Beach has got paid parking, but we have to look at where we are and balance that against where Surf City is. I think there is some thought in my mind of perhaps increasing the cost at the driving beach, just to kind of cut the traffic down a little more up there. Everything that Fred said about the traffic up and down New River Inlet Road, getting to the driving beach, has really minimized and gotten, the issue's gotten better once we started charging people to drive out there.
Mr. Fowler?
No, I wouldn't consider an increase. It's not something, but it goes back, and I'd like to tag on what Leonard said. The drive on beach, if you increase that money there to cut down the traffic that's going up there, it plays into safety, which was talked about several questions ago, the roadways, the bike paths that's being proposed, those types of things. All of that is intertwined to give the tapestry of what it would look like if we can clean up that particular portion a little bit. That's all I have on that.
All right. Mr. Olszewski?
Okay. I would not be in favor of increasing parking rates. I love Topsail as a family beach, and I want it to remain that way, and I want families to be able to afford to come to our beach. So no, I would not want to raise rates. I also want to look at more accessibility for the elderly and the handicap at our beaches. I find that it's a little bit discriminatory sometimes if you don't have a smartphone to try to deal with these apps. And I think we need to look at that as a town so that people without smartphones also have access to our beaches.
All right, thank you. The next question will start with you. This was submitted online. The main pipes carrying water to homes and rental units may be too small to accommodate the required pressure to fight fires, wash clothes, and/or take showers. How do you propose the town address and correct the lack of water pressure on North Topsail Beach?
Well, I am not a hydro engineer, but I think as Flores and Onwassa, I think as Flores and Onwassa combine, we'd need to work as a town to find out what we need to do to address that pressure. I know in my own home, you can't run the dishwasher and take a shower at the same time. So I think it's a problem across North Topsail Beach, but not being a hydro engineer, I think we would probably have to bring folks in to study that issue and see what we'd have to do in the infrastructure to improve that.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
Laura touched on it. these larger houses that we're building that have 3 or 4 floors, multiple bathrooms, may not have intended to, years ago, to look at a house that big on a particular property, but they are experiencing that. The promise of the water pressure that the company would hold is violated routinely. And it goes back to, just as she pointed out, there is so much involved with the movement of water flow through pipes. What size pipes? How are the pipes located? We can only get certain pipes across the waterway. So we've got to have that infrastructure to help us.
All right, thank you. Mr. Leonard?
About 3 or 4 months ago, during the board meeting, we had reps from Onwassa come in and address the board specifically about that issue. In addition to that, we have a board member, it formerly was the mayor and it's now Alderman Grant, who sits on the Onwassa board and represents the town's interests and needs. The short answer is it's been identified as a problem and steps are being taken to resolve it. And I know specifically, I asked the Onwassa reps when we were here about all these apartments out here right before you get to North Shore and what effect they will have on peeling the water pressure off before it gets to the island. They're aware of it, they know they need to fix it, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire until they do.
Okay. Mr. Fontana?
I think Alderman Leonard is correct about all the development on 210. I'll add Onwassa is very much aware of it. They are in the process of building, or will soon be building, a new pump station, actually right at the end of this parking lot, which should help. And also they're prepared to make quick changes. 4th of July week, water pressure was very low, so they connected on the south end of town with the water from Surf City, and that helped remediate it. It did not solve the problem, but I think the town has a very good working relationship with Onwassa. They are definitely aware of it, and I know the current board will make sure that we'll keep the pressure, so to speak, play a word, keep the pressure on them to make sure that the water pressure does improve.
All right, thank you. Ms. Plato?
What Tom and Fred said, I liked your joke. We have had discussions with Onwassa. We continue to meet with them. They've showed us their plans. Right out back here is where the new pump station is going to be. We want this, we've addressed this, we want this all in place. We don't want another issue like we've had during the summer, especially around the 4th of July, where it's very difficult to have some good water pressure. Hopefully by this next summer, we'll get this taken care of. It is a concern with all the new building going on in Sneads Ferry, but Onwassa is aware that we are holding their feet to the fire.
Yeah, thank you. All right. The next question will start with you. As is common right now, unfortunately, across most small towns, there appears to be a lack of interest in people attending town meetings, including committee meetings. What do you propose to do to encourage residents to become more involved in meetings and participating in projects that impact the town?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. We have tried many different ways. The town meetings were being held in the evening. We would have 1 or 2 people would show up. We were told that maybe more people would, when we kind of polled some of the townspeople, that people would show up if we had it during the day. We have a half dozen people in here most of the time at best. I do think that one of the things that we have done is we stream the town meetings. That way it's available anytime to anybody who wants to watch them. As far as the committees, I really don't know. It's very important to get involved in your town, to get involved in any way that you can. I have no idea, though. I wish I had a better answer.
Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball either. I know the town has a new and improved town website that identifies all the upcoming meetings. The agenda for our meeting is placed there. The minutes from previous meetings are placed there. Public is invited to attend. The meetings are streamed. Notices are also placed on social media. The town's Facebook page also announces any meetings coming up. So I don't know what else that we can do. We invite people on the boards. There's applications for all the town boards, the planning boards, the BISAC committee, any committees that the town has. We're making it easier. I think now that there's going to be some new technology to where the application is going to be easier to submit. So believe me, the town is trying, and I could see by the turnout today, maybe we've gotten some, maybe it's working somewhat.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
The question was, how do we get people to come to meetings? The answer is, I don't know. And the reason the answer is I don't know is I started coming to the meetings here in about 2007. They were at 7:30 at night. Sat out there, and the only time people came to those meetings was when they were upset about something. And they come in droves, okay? Decision was made to move the meetings to 6:30. I'm not sure why, because I like to have dinner before the meetings, and it was when I was on the board. Didn't make a difference, okay? Then the decision was made to bring the meetings full circle and have them during the workday. And one benefit to having them during the workday is that our town staff, who prepare for days to effect these meetings, don't end up having to work until 9 or 10 o'clock at night after they've worked 3 or 4 days to get ready for the meeting. So it was, I think, in part a concession to our staff. But again, people don't show up for meetings unless they're upset about something. So I don't know what the answer is, and I think with social media and streaming the meetings, it's the actual physical participation and how COVID changed everything in terms of Zoomers and all that is just, there is no right answer to this, and I tell you, if anybody has an answer to it, I'd love to hear it.
Mr. Fowler?
As has been mentioned, since COVID, the culture has changed to a more electronic format for meetings. It's just a part that's going to be with us, I suspect, for the rest of our lives. What I think we can do better here is send instructions out on how to get to the sites. We have the information going out. We just need to make sure that the folks know how to access the information that they want to get to, this meeting or any of the others. And again, if IT is a big part of it, and I think that we have to maximize what we can do along those lines.
Thank you. Mr. Olszewski?
I think we need a marketing campaign that reaches out to both property owners and registered voters, letting them know that the town is welcoming their input and that the somewhat infighting or negative things they see out on the web should not deter them from coming to meetings and bringing some new voices and some fresh eyes to the meetings. So I think we need to work harder to get to people and to solicit their input and to really listen to the folks in the community, whether they are a property owner or a registered voter.
Thank you. The next question is going to start with you. Being an oceanfront community, how do you feel about lifeguards, and do you believe in the future lifeguards should be implemented in North Topsail Beach?
I am not in favor of lifeguards on North Topsail Beach. I'm in favor of people taking personal responsibility on the beach. We have great beaches, and I don't want to see the increased taxes that would come with lifeguards or the increased liability to the town.
All right. Mr. Fowler?
Well, that's a good question, since we tout ourselves to be a family-friendly beach. That's, again, a balancing act, and it goes back to the fiscal issue that was mentioned just now. I would have to look at the cost of it. Could it be put in place? But I think that issue probably is a little bigger. I think that's something that probably the three towns should sit down and talk about Topsail Island and something like this, so that it doesn't become a us versus them type thing if we're to go that way at all.
Mr. Leonard?
Laura had the perfect answer, and I agree with what she said. You know, having sat on this board now for going on 9 years, this thing comes up almost every time we have a tragedy. Most of those tragedies are preventable, and if people had read the sign and not gone in the water at the inlet, you know, maybe things had turned out differently that day. You want to watch the town attorney break out into a cold sweat, mention having lifeguards. The liability for the town, it goes way beyond just the cost to train and pay lifeguards and set everything up. It goes way beyond that. It opens a liability door to the town that is incredible. For that reason, and the reasons stated earlier, I am against having lifeguards in North Topsail Beach.
All right. Mr. Fontana?
I'm going to take a slightly different approach. If we had all the money that we could possibly get, I would definitely be in favor of lifeguards. But at some point, you've got to look at a cost-benefit analysis. And we've been very fortunate. We have our fire and police and rescue teams that have been very, very good out there. You know, I'm not sure if any of the unfortunate fatalities that we've had could have been avoided if we had lifeguards. I'd like to see lifeguards, but again, the liability issue and the cost, I think at this point is just something that the town cannot afford.
I also think Laura had the perfect answer. And to add to that, I believe that having lifeguards does give a false sense of security. I think that people think, okay, there's a lifeguard there, I can swim anywhere around here. And even people that are poor swimmers think that if a lifeguard's there, they're going to save them. But the ocean's a whole different creature than a pool. Also, the cost to the town, the liability. I just think that it just isn't feasible for our town. However, if there was a push to have lifeguards, I think that perhaps it should be pushed towards the county, maybe at a county access where they have maybe some more resources than we do. However, I don't feel that they would want to take on the responsibility and the liability either.
Okay. This is another question from the audience. Over the years, North Topsail Beach officials may have alienated our geographical neighbors, such as Camp Lejeune or Surf City. If elected, how would you intend to mend these fences for a good, strong working relationship?
All right. So we have 4 town meetings that are quarterly, where we get together with our neighboring towns, and we discuss issues, we get to know each other, we have a lot of common issues. So we really do try to build that sense of community, that we're just not 3 towns on the island and Holly Ridge, that we're all in it together. We do that as well. Camp Lejeune, and Tom was probably going to speak more about this. We have a good relationship with them as well. They have a lot of events, a lot of meetings that we are all in together, as well as the county. I know the county wasn't in there, but we are working on it.
Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, I disagree with the premise that we don't have a good relationship with the towns, the neighboring towns, and with Camp Lejeune. The Shoreline Protection Commission meets every other month and with the representative from all the towns, and they are working on a couple of projects. The Beach Clean project is an island-wide project to keep plastics off the beach, keep the beach clean. Also working on a project to remove Vitex. I don't know how many are familiar with Vitex is like kudzu that eats at the dunes and keeps vegetation from growing. And the towns, it's not just a one-town project. It wouldn't work unless all the towns are together on it. And we also get invited almost on every other month to 3 months to events at Camp Lejeune. We're working very closely with Camp Lejeune. He's primarily our contact there, and so I do disagree with the question that we don't have a good relationship with the neighboring communities in Camp Lejeune.
Mr. Leonard?
I'll echo the comments made by Fred and Connie. I've been here a long time. I think we had a rough patch with Onslow County. I think in a lot of ways it was justified with respect to occupancy tax money that's collected here and not returned here, unlike in Pender County where all of the occupancy tax is collected in Surf City and Topsail Beach or returned to the respective towns where it's collected. Rick Grant is our liaison to the County Board of Commissioners. He attends all their meetings. He's made great strides in improving the relationship. And again, it's all about relationships. I'm our liaison to Camp Lejeune. I have not seen the things that are being asked in that question. I simply haven't. I think we have a good relationship with our neighbors.
All right, Mr. Fowler?
No, so I think relationships are going to be more critical with the continuing growth in the 17 corridor. Our traffic, we fuss about it now. It's only going to get worse. These four-town meetings into regional meetings about traffic that will impact us that we frankly have no control over will be paramount to us being able to get out on the weekends at all during the summer season. But those relationships are certainly critical, and it has to spread just a little beyond the four towns and go into a more regional approach, I think, with it.
All right. Ms. Olszewski?
I would agree with the other members that I think we have pretty good relationships with the other towns and with the county and with Camp Lejeune. I would like us to work more with Camp Lejeune so that we sort of understood sometimes when they're having training exercises that could affect the beach and beach traffic. I know there's sometimes, I experienced it when there was an exercise on the beach by an individual that sort of scared people on the beach. And so I think if we get a heads up to those things, that would be helpful for us. So I think continued communication in those relationships and continuing to strengthen those relationships. And while Rick and Mr. Leonard are doing a great job, I think we need to have a few more people involved both at Camp Lejeune and in the other regional meetings.
All right. This next question is rather long, so bear with me on this. It was submitted by somebody here. After the recent reevaluation of property, North Topsail Beach increased the town tax rate by 14 cents per hundred over the revenue neutral rate, which would have already given about an 8% increase in tax revenue, as the revenue neutral rate adds increases for inflation and new construction. If elected, will you commit to doing everything possible to get our town tax rate back to the revenue neutral rate, thus cutting 14 cents per hundred off our tax rate? This might include significant cuts to the amounts being added to our beach and capital reserve funds, which are getting millions of dollars each year. As a citizen who lives here year-round, I feel we are being taxed out of our homes. If elected, how will you help prevent that?
So my taxes went up about 60%, so I felt that, and I'll be 64 next week. So I certainly can understand what the tax increases have done to people. And I think if elected, I need to fully understand and work with the town and the county to understand why the tax increases were not more even across the county and what effect this increase had on the town. And I also want to look at some homesteading because we don't currently have a homesteading act on the island. And for those of us that have been residents for a very long time, I think a homestead act could be appropriate. In addition, we need to look at whether we're charging our veterans property taxes at all. And we should not be, in my opinion, because they've already served. And other municipalities grant waivers to veterans on their property taxes. So I think there's other things we can look at in regards to property taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
So I think it's so complex because it touches on emotion so quickly. But we can go back and look at how we do those taxes. Perhaps if we put a tax on, we don't need to have it infinitum. Perhaps a tax could be levied with a sundown clause. Do it for 5 years and then step back. As has been talked about earlier, physically, some work has been done to get back to a good point. It's the old "don't cut off your nose to spite your face" saying with the thing, but it's a fireball either way you go with it.
All right. Mr. Leonard?
It's a complex issue. The biggest part of the issue is the county reevaluation. The county reevaluates the tax base, the real estate values. The town does not. I was not on the board when the budget was done for that year after the major reevaluation, so I can't speak to it as Connie might be able to. But the point is that the town did lower the tax rate. I know my home taxes went up almost doubled, to the point that I went back and contested the reevaluation, and they dropped $250,000 off the value of my home when I did, just without any quibbling at all. There's ways to do that. People need to take whatever valuation they can or whatever action they can on their own. I think it stinks that they did that. I think the reevaluation amount was just horrendous. But at the same time, our taxes are what pay our employees. And we have to pay our employees a decent wage in order to retain our employees, and we've got quality employees here. So it's a double-edged sword. And I know that's a lousy answer, but it's the best I can do.
Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, I'm like everybody else. I'd like for my taxes to have gone down too. They were almost doubled. But it comes down to, again, without using cliche, you pay me now or you pay me later. We have made a tremendous effort to reducing the town's debt. You reduce the taxes. What don't you want to pay for that the town is currently providing? Do you want to provide less money for the beach and have the beach be eroded and then the value of your property and your house go down? Do you want to not have money available for a new fire station? Do you not want to, again, like Tom says, pay our employees adequate wages so that they stay here and don't jump to other towns that are paying more? It's unfortunate, but I think based on the situation we're in, it was a good decision. I didn't like it, but it's a good decision, and the expenses are not going to go away. You could kick the can down the road some, but the expenses are still going to be there. So like I say, you pay me now, pay me later. It's just something that has to be done.
All right, thank you.
If any of you attended any of the budget workshops or watched it online, you know that I had an awful lot of angst over this budget. With the reval by the county, the value of your homes all went up. Our taxes went up. We lowered our tax rate, but of course, with the reval, my taxes doubled, and I am of modest means. I live in my house. I don't rent it, so I don't have any extra income coming in to offset those taxes. But when it came to setting the tax rate, we did lower it 3 cents. However, your taxes still still went up. We are only 40% of what you pay in taxes. Onslow County gets the other 60%. In order to keep your town services, pay your police, your fire, have your beach, everything, we had to set the rate at what it was. We tried to be fair. We tried to be very thoughtful. Again, there was a lot of angst, but this was the fairest way so that everybody could have all the services and protections that they needed.
All right, thank you. The next question, we'll start with you. There has been much social media discussion on the terminal groin. Every time it comes up, the answer is we are awaiting study results. Let's fast forward and assume there are no obstacles to creating a groin. For the record, if approved, where do you stand on the groin and why?
If there were no obstacles and we had all the money in the world, I would stand to actually put in a terminal groin. When Ocean Isle Beach got theirs, I went down there a couple times. I went with Mr. Grant once and watched as it was being constructed. I've watched the aerial photos of what it looks like, how it's been working since then. There's a lot of misinformation out there. People think that it's going to cause the rest of the island to have terrible erosion. If there is any erosion, it will likely be up into the New River Inlet, not down the beach. But yes, if there were no obstacles, including financial, I would be for it.
All right, Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, I agree with Connie. Again, if money was unlimited, the terminal groin appears to be the solution. But money is not unlimited. It's going to be an ongoing expense. I think we need to look at all options. The town has beach engineers right now looking at several options, and I think once the environmental impact statement is finalized and all the options, including one of the things I learned as a civil engineering student, there's a do-nothing option that also has to be looked at. So there'll be several options, and before I could commit to any of them, again, it's a cost-benefit. If it's $15 million to build the groin, and it's $1 million to build another option that may not quite be as successful as the groin, it may be the way to go. But I don't think it's going to be an easy decision or a quick decision, even after the environmental impact statement is finalized.
Mr. Leonard?
My understanding is that the question is, would I support the terminal groin
Yes.
if all the permitting was out of the way and done? Simple answer is yes. I live up at the north end, not at the far north end, but up there close enough to see what's going on with the erosion rates over the past 20 years. We need something to stabilize that part of the town. I think financially we don't know what it's going to cost because everything changes as time marches on with inflation, the cost of everything. But I think the terminal groin is going to end up being the right answer for the north end of North Topsail Beach and Topsail Island.
Mr. Fowler?
Until the data was all brought in and we could see exactly what it meant, that cost benefit is critical. We can say we're for it, call it a groin, call it a board, call it what you will. We need to do something to help the north end stabilize. We know that. This is years down the road still at best. Again, I think Mr. Leonard said it best. We've got to look at all options. If it's the right thing, then certainly vote for it. The challenge is a wrong vote. If we do the wrong thing, it's an expensive wrong thing.
Mr. Olszewski?
I think everybody's kind of looked at the arguments for and against the groin. I think I would be for the groin if that was what the engineers involved were suggesting and we had the funds to pay for it. When we look at the end of Wrightsville Beach where there was one built, there was a lot of private money that did that. So again, fiscally, what can we do to protect the north end. If the terminal groin is the right engineering option, then I think the board's job is to go find the money to do that.
All right. All right, next question. Would you encourage Phase 5 annexation to Surf City? This was submitted by somebody here, so I'm not quite sure about this.
The quick answer, no.
Mr. Fowler?
So this has been tested previously. It came up. I think there were some valid reasons at that time for looking at annexation. As always, the devil's in the details, and the benchmarks weren't met that allowed it to go forward with annexation process, so it died a natural death on the vine, as the system is designed to do.
Yeah. Mr. Leonard?
No.
Mr. Fontana?
No.
Ms. Beadle?
No, I am not.
Well, that was an easy one. All right. Next question. Regarding the bike path on NRIR,
New River Inlet Road.
okay, New River Inlet Road, has anyone on the council currently or running for office gone and asked homeowners, or more importantly, the taxpayers, or anyone living on that road, their opinion of a bike path? I find that this bike path would be very dangerous, has blind curves, would include a bridge, and there's also been some fatalities in this area already. How do you feel about using taxpayer monies to support a bike path on this road, and what are your opinions of it?
Back in the early 2000s, when this was first brought up, there were residents that were coming to the board a lot, really making a push towards for the bike path. So this has been in the works for a long time. And throughout the years, when we have had any sort of studies, any sort of people talking about it, giving feedback to the town, it's always been a very positive thing. As far as the blind curves, the blind areas and the curvy roads and everything, it is more dangerous without a bike path than it is with a bike path. However, we are still in the study phase. The DOT is looking at it. This won't be done. If it is done, it will not be done quickly. It will not be done without the studies to ensure the safety of the people who are going to use it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fontana?
Bike lanes is obviously one of my pet projects. I just was amazed that a town that's recreational and tourist oriented doesn't have a bike lane on all its major roads. You can't drive down New River Inlet Road anytime during the summer without almost running into somebody on a bicycle. It's just unsafe the way it is right now. The support that I've received on all my Facebook posts for the bike lane has been almost unanimously in favor of it. We've got a proposal from NCDOT that would keep the cost down. The town would only have to pay for the widening portion of it. We will skip the bridges. That cost is too expensive, but it's just a win-win-win for everybody, and I just don't see any reason why anybody would be opposed to a bike lane.
All right, Mr. Leonard?
Show of hands in this room, how many people have ridden a bike on New River Inlet Road? Okay, there's a hand. Show of hands, how many people have ridden a bike on New River Inlet Road? Show of hands. There's a few of us. I do it all the time. I got an e-bike a few months ago. I put 300 miles on it in about the first 3 months I owned it. I'm on that road a lot. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. We need to do something. What I sense from the tone of the question is that it was probably written by a homeowner who's afraid they're going to lose some of their front yard. That's what I'm wondering. Okay, I don't have an answer for that. It's got to be considered. Okay, it's got to be considered. But we've got to do something to make New River Inlet Road more safe for not just bicyclists, but pedestrians, parents pushing baby carriages, strollers, you name it. I mean, we've got those nice wide sides on the road down here on 210 that were done when the road was repaved a few years ago. We're trying to do the same thing up here. The whole town should look the same from that regard and should be just as safe up there. And that road is worse because of the curves, and I think adding those bike lanes will actually make the roads safer for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Dorothy, can I rebut or
Yes,
add something?
yes.
As far as right-of-way goes, NCDOT has all the right-of-way that they need for the bike lane. There will be no expense to the town to purchase right-of-way. There may be a little bit of utility work needed to be done by St. Regis and by the Reef, but other than that, should not have any impact on the property owners as far as right-of-way goes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fowler?
I think the key thing was said early on, and that was the studies for safety in it. There are 9 bridges along that strip of roadway to dump a bicyclist from out of town. And Mr. Leonard brings up a good point. He's on it a lot. He sees that. You have cars coming up behind you at speed, 45 miles an hour, and you've got to bounce out from a bike path into a lane of traffic. So again, until that safety study came in, and that's on us. That money is on the city. So that's something that I think would have to be looked at closely before I could answer that question, yes or no.
Rebuttal, Mr. Leonard?
Just as a point of clarification, having ridden from my house up to Town Hall and back on that road, the bridges actually at present have more of a width than the road does. You actually have a little bit of shoulder, so while Mr. Fowler is correct, you would be narrowing down to the bridges. There's still shoulder on those bridges that acts now as a narrow bike lane, but yet still a bike lane. So you wouldn't be actually riding out into the traffic. We've got to do something here. We've got to do something here.
All right. Ms. Olszewski?
So if you look from Surf City Line north to Town Hall, those of us that ride in that area who live in the southern part of North Topsail Beach, I do believe there's the right-of-way there that the state could put the bike lane. I certainly have 3 bikes in my garage, and I would be in favor of bike lanes because it's very dangerous. But in addition, I think we have to relook with the state at the idea of crosswalks and reducing speed.
Any rebuttal? No? Good for that.
Well, I would, if I could address the question of speed, this has come up, and maybe it's one of your questions down the road. If you've got a question about reducing the speed limit to 35, is that on one of your questions?
Well, the last question was actually about the safety of the local roads.
Okay, then I'll wait for
Okay.
that answer, that question rather.
Okay. We'll go ahead and start with that. There's been a lot of concern about the safety of local roads. If elected, what will you do to help increase the safety for residents and tourists alike?
Well, to that point, I do think our speed limit is a little high on the island. I think we need to work with the state. I think we need to reduce that. I think we need to have some flashing lights and crosswalks, and I think we do need the bike lane. But I think critically, as town officials, safety's first. We have to look at the safety of our citizens and visitors.
Mr. Fowler?
So I think she's correct. The approach has to be comprehensive. We haven't said anything about golf carts, and that's going to come up in the conversation sooner or later. So again, that comprehensive approach as opposed to just looking at tunnel vision on one issue and going forward. I think she said it right, the speed, the crosswalk, the lighted, I think it has to be, at least the vision for it has to be far-reaching so that it takes in the amount of traffic, sheer traffic, that's going to hit 210 when these apartments out here on the other side of North Shore are filled.
Okay. Mr. Leonard?
Yes, a couple things. First, there's an item on this upcoming board agenda. The fire chief has been tasked by the town manager to report back with his plan for the crosswalks. So it's been addressed, it's been recognized and addressed. Golf carts were recently discussed and addressed. We've changed the town's ordinance and gone back to the state ordinance that doesn't permit golf carts to be driven on any street with a speed limit in excess of 35 miles an hour, which is state law. And they have to be registered, and they have to be titled and taxed and inspected and insured and all that stuff. I think the issue of the speed limits in the town and the overall safety factors that Laura addressed, it's time for that. And it's something that, we've got a planning board, and that's a citizen committee, and honestly, we're all in this together, folks. And, suggestions and recommendations from our town citizens, even if you're not on the board, you send somebody an email like one of us and give us your thoughts. And that way we're not trying to make these plans and these regulations, in a vacuum without citizen input. If you think the speed limit's too high, let somebody know. Help us with this, because you live here too.
Thank you, Mr. Fontana.
I've traveled quite a bit, and in some other beach communities that I've seen, not in North Carolina, but elsewhere, they actually have a two-tiered speed limit. During the tourist season, and for here, let's say April 15th to October 15th, speed limit would be 35. And maybe to get around the golf cart issue, we'd make it 36 miles per hour. During the remainder of the season, from October 15th to April 15th, make it 45. I know it's hard during the winter to drive 35 miles an hour on Island Drive, and there's no cars in sight. So I think that's an option that only have to be, I counted them, it's less than 20 signs that would have to be switched out twice a year. It wouldn't be that big a deal. We'd have to get NCDOT to approve it since they control the speed limits. But I think it's something that the town ought to consider, having a two-tiered speed limit.
Rebuttal.
Go ahead.
I'm just sitting here kind of wondering if our town manager's watching this live stream, because I think if she is, you just gave her an aneurysm. We've talked about this before, and we've agreed to disagree.
I do think that safety is paramount in this town, and we are working, several of the issues we're already working on. In this upcoming town meeting, we are addressing the crosswalks, lowering the speed limit. We've talked about it, especially with our parking committee, with the golf carts. As what you were saying, once it gets down to 35, then you have them so that you can have golf carts throughout the whole town. And I don't know if you've driven through Surf City when there's been somebody zooming down the road in their golf cart. I don't know that we want that in our whole town. Maybe we do. That's something that the citizens would have to let us know. Or perhaps we could have, I don't know the legality of having sections where there are no golf carts, but it kind of makes me a little antsy to think about it being 35 on Island Drive, and when cars start zooming down there, having golf carts in the way. So I say I have to stop, but I am for the crosswalks, which we are working on, and I am really open to looking at doing something for safety, whether it's reducing the speed limit or anything else.
Okay. That actually concludes the question portion. So now we're going to go into the 2-minute closing statement for each candidate. Are you prepared to do
I
that?
am prepared. It's not going to be 2 minutes, though.
Okay.
Okay.
Start when you're ready.
All right. I think we've had a really great forum here today. I really enjoyed hearing everybody's answers, and I hope you have too, and I hope we've all learned a little something about each other. And I hope it helps the voters decide who they would like to represent them on the board. Because, quite frankly, we're a small town. We're all friends and neighbors. maybe we're not quite friends, but maybe we could be. But when we sit up here, it's because we want to represent you. We want to hear your voices. We want to do what you all want us to do. We have to work together as a town. To that end, I do get quite a few people who call me, who email me, who text me, and anybody is welcome to. My information's out there. I am happy to meet with anybody. I'll sit down to coffee with you. I will talk forever, and I'll listen. So if anybody ever wants to, because we need to work as one. We're a small community. We need to take care of each other. I want to thank everybody who came out. I want to thank everybody who's watching at home. And I especially want to thank the Topsail Times for moderating this. And this was really great. You guys did a fantastic job. And I urge everybody to go out and vote. You can either do, the 31st is your last day to do the absentee ballot if you're not going to be around. There are, what is it?
One stop?
One stop. There are the one-stop places that you can go. And I would be really honored if you would cast your vote for me to retain my seat as alderman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fontana?
Yeah, I echo Connie's thanking of the Topsail Times. Thank you for moderating this event. I think by the attendance here, it was well received. As I've mentioned from day one, I am not a politician. I think Connie and Tom will attest that when I was interviewing for the position that I filled as alderman, I specifically said, I don't want to get into politics. This is not what I want to do. And they assured me that it's not a political position, that everybody's here on the board to make the town a better place. And that's why I'm running, and that's why I'm on the board, and that's why I'd like to continue to be on the board. I live in North Topsail Beach. I love this area, and I want to see it continue to be a tremendous town that it is. I didn't wait to be asked to serve on any boards. I volunteered to serve on the planning board. I volunteered to fill the position on the board of aldermen. I do not have a campaign manager. I do what I want to do because I just enjoy serving the town. And again, I also ask that you vote on November 7th. If you don't vote for me, please vote for somebody. Just vote. I appreciate your vote, but I also think the way the democracy works, it's important that everybody votes, whether they vote for you or for somebody else. And thank you.
Mr. Leonard?
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out. Thanks to Topsail Times you did a great job on this. I've sat up here more than once and over the years, and this is by far the best run. You know, I'm sitting up here and I'm pleasantly surprised. After reading, and I'm not on those Facebook pages, but people screenshot them to me and email them to me and text them to me, and all the mudslinging and all the crap. I am surprised that this has been such a civilized and warm event. I think I could work with any of you on this panel up here as fellow aldermen. I've done this for a while. I want to finish what I started, and that's getting us out of Cobra. I'm running for the 2-year seat. We all signed up for the 4-year seat. Then we all got the phone call from the County Board of Elections that a mistake was made that was caught by state for Bob Swantek's remainder of his term, and it had to be run as a special 2-year election. The morning of, last morning to file, no one had filed for it, and I thought, well, this is kind of dumb. You know, we've got three positions, and now down to 2 for 4 years, and we've got 6 people running for them, and nobody's signed up for that one. Well, you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what your odds are. Okay, it really doesn't, you know. And so I went ahead and filed, and I was the only one who filed. Now, the gentleman next to me has decided he wants to write in for that seat, and I'm sure he has plenty to say about that. But public service for me has all been about building relationships. In my service to the town, I've developed and maintained relationships at the county, state, and federal levels, and these relationships are why Our town has a COBRA bill in the U.S. House of Representatives right now. I would like to finish the job to get us out of COBRA, and I need your vote on that second ballot in order to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
Well, thank you. Much like the others, I do appreciate you taking your time to come out and moderate this afternoon. It has been cordial. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my position as I answer the questions for the audience and the voters who are here. I think we have an opportunity to make a great change in the culture of and how our government interacts with residents and homeowners. Are we doing things right? Are we doing the right things? If the answer to those two are yes, then we can move forward with confidence and the town's approval at what we're doing. I'll go back and address one thing that Mr. Leonard talked about. I believe every voter should have a choice. I put in to do a write-in ballot because I felt one was not the right number. Voters needed a choice. I selected that as a write-in to give the voters a choice. So there's no animus, it's simply that. I grew up, I defended that. So that's where we are.
Thank you.
Again, I'll just say it again. My name is Laura Olszewski, so we get that. Just in case you're going out to vote, you know which one. It's the one with the SKI at the end. But I would like to thank the Topsail Times, but I would also like to thank, as a past IT director, our IT support in the back of the room who helped us through this process today. I have the time to serve. I love this beach. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a water rat, and so, you know, past sailor, beach goer, and mostly you'll find me barefoot on the beach. My background in geography and environmental planning and my internship in community planning, my years of service in other committees in public sector and private sector, I would really appreciate the opportunity to be elected and to have the chance to serve, to bring a new voice to the board. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I would encourage every one of our citizens who are eligible to vote to please vote. But I would also encourage those people in our town that are property owners to come to our meetings and also have their voices heard, even if they are not eligible to vote. Thank you.
Before we go, can we have a quick show of hands of how many people here are registered voters? Outstanding. Almost everybody.
I'd like to ask at this time that we give all the candidates a round of applause. And I know Mr. Leonard is eagerly waiting his mother's phone call for his birthday. See, we don't want to keep him from that. And I would like to ask if anybody in the audience have questions, that the candidates wait around for a few minutes and just talk with the people here in the audience, see if there's anything that perhaps wasn't covered in tonight's forum. So thank you all for coming.